Cable TV battles, online travel industry battles. Get the popcorn. Investor Beat starts now. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Hill, joined in studio by Jason Moser and Ron Gross. Figured we'd wrap up the week looking at a few of the battles that are playing out right now. Let's start.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with the online travel industry. We got Priceline. Second quarter earnings up 24%. They're really getting it done. Although Orbitz yesterday, stock popped 37%. What do you see when you look at online travel?
In general, people are traveling, and you're seeing it show up in the numbers of all these companies. Priceline is the big gorilla here. 45 times the size of Orbitz. But bookings were up 38%. Asia was strong. Europe was strong. Really getting it done. Stock's approaching $1,000 a share. It's a big milestone. It gets us back to the .com era.
Right.
But all the companies are doing well, but Priceline's the one to beat.
I was going to say, if you're Priceline, are you looking at Orbitz and thinking, maybe we buy them out, or is it better to have them there just as competition?
I think maybe it's better just to have them there as competition. I mean, I think, they did a good thing, I think, in buying Kayak, because that gave them, I think, another source of traffic, of site traffic that they maybe didn't have before. But really, when you look at Orbitz and even your Expedias to a degree, I mean, those are all just much smaller players in this realm here. I mean, I was looking over here this last quarter. Priceline.com now has 330,000 plus hotels in their bookings.com database, so to speak. I mean, that is just, it seems like that's the entire world, and I guess that really makes sense here. This, as Ron said, is the big gorilla in the space, and at $40+ billion market cap now, I think that's actually deserved, and they are going to, I think, really continue to define this travel space for years to come. Just a phenomenal company.
Yeah, but you mentioned the stock, $1,000. That's a sort of price tag that you can get sticker shock by. If you're an investor, you're looking at that, and on some level, you're thinking, no, that's got to be too pricey.
Right. Very important lesson, actually, to not focus on the price per share, but on the market capitalization, the entire value of the company relative to its profits or cash flow. When you look at it based on that, we're really only maybe 25 times earnings, which for a company with these kinds of growth rates and this kind of market share is reasonable.
All right, let's move over to cable TV. It was a week ago today that if you were a Time Warner cable customer in New York City, Los Angeles, Dallas, guess what? CBS went dark.
Sorry.
They pulled the plug for millions of people. How is this playing out, and does either side have the advantage? Because the closer we get to pro football, I'm just thinking about CBS, and I don't really watch the primetime programming, but pro football, they got to work this out soon, don't they?
That's a big one, and the season is starting up now. We're in the preseason. We were talking about this earlier. I think you made a great point in that this doesn't affect us at all, right? We're not in that blackout area, so I still get my CBS. I can watch whatever I want. But I do think it's very interesting to see the timing here. CBS is taking this negotiation on at a very important time in their year here with the top show on TV and Under the Dome. Tremendous sports schedule coming up. They've got the PGA Championship this weekend alone. Not to mention this entire football season getting ready to start. And the NFL is one of their specialties, along with everything else that they do. So, I mean, at its very core, this is just a fundamental disagreement in a negotiation, right? CBS thinks they should get this amount of money, and Time Warner thinks they should get this amount of money. They're going to have to meet in the middle at some point here, because ultimately, if they keep this up, both sides come out looking bad, and the customers end up losing. And I wouldn't doubt that there would be some customers that would end up defecting away from Time Warner Cable if there are other options out there.
If you are Bob Iger at Disney or one of his lieutenants at ESPN, you have to be watching this and considering, if you're ESPN, are you at least considering upping your retransmission fees in the way that CBS, I mean, that's really at the core of this. CBS saying, we want more money for the retransmission fees. Do you think ESPN pulls this card?
I think it opens up the ability to start negotiations, especially if you're sports related. Sports being one of the last kind of frontiers that people don't DVR, don't fast forward through commercials. It's very important sports programming. So I'm sure they're sitting around the table over at Disney saying, what should we do here?
Whose cards would you rather be holding, all things being equal, a content company or a cable company?
Well, I think at the end of the day, content's king, right? And I think we're seeing sort of this shift away from this traditional TV model with the advent of internet TV. And Netflix has certainly spearheaded this movement. Now you have Amazon Prime, Hulu, TV everywhere really taking over. So I think that at the end of the day, you've got to be feeling pretty good if you're the one bringing the content to the cable, because that's what people really want, right? They just want the content. They don't really care so much how they get it.
Earlier this week, Jeff Bezos from Amazon.com making headlines all across the country by buying the Washington Post for $250 million. Here in the D.C. area, really a huge part of the story was the Graham family, who had owned it for 80 years. I think people were really stunned by that. But do you think that this bodes for a better future for the Washington Post with someone like Bezos at the helm?
It's certainly very interesting. I applaud the Graham family for saying, we don't know where the future is. It's time for us to give up the helm of this and give it to someone as innovative as Bezos. We don't know exactly where he's going with this. He'll probably make it even more national of a brand than it is, like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. He'll probably do things we can't even imagine sitting here right now. But I think it bodes well for newspapers. It's interesting, the tack he's taking is different than what Warren Buffett is doing when he's been scooping up little regional players, because he firmly believes in what they do for the niche that they operate in.
Right.
It's really a different situation. But whatever Bezos does, it's going to be interesting.
It was just a couple of days prior that John Henry, who owns the Boston Red Sox, bought the Boston Globe for $70 million from the New York Times company. Yep. Do you think that is the future, whether it's Warren Buffett or other sort of business leaders buying these newspapers and taking them private? The whole notion that you can operate better in private if you don't have to make those quarterly demands.
Well, I think it's distinctly possible. I mean, I think many companies out there do enjoy the fact that they're private and don't have to answer to your 10 Qs and public shareholders all of the time. With the Bezos situation, I mean, I think this is really a great example of sort of old world thinking or old school thinking versus new school thinking, right? The Graham family, which has just tremendous roots in this company and where it's gone to this point, it's just, media, newspapers, that is making just a fundamental shift here in the 21st century, and they just haven't been able to really do that. And I think that Jeff Bezos, being a very forward thinker, at least is going to give this a shot. And while it's not something that's part of the Amazon family per se, we can take a lot of what he's done at Amazon and sort of, look at that in the context of the Washington Post. He's a very long-term thinker, and he's very customer-oriented. It's all about the customer for Bezos. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see something more like a, like Ron was saying, a national platform that pertains to more people as opposed to just localized, and some sort of personalized level of service as well, where I might want something a little bit different than what Ron or what you may want, but something that everybody has at least a choice in the matter.
And I would say the best reason for being public is because you need to access the capital markets for the cash that you can use to grow. If Bezos doesn't need the access to the capital markets right now, if he has deep pockets or perhaps his partners have deep pockets.
Oh, he's got deep pockets.
Where he doesn't need to be public and be under the eye of Wall Street and investors, then why be there? Take it private and do what you need to do.
All right, that's going to wrap up this week. Let's look ahead to next week. What's a stock you've got on your radar?
I'm looking at Perry Ellis, which reports on Monday, a diversified fashion company. I'm really interested to see what they've been doing with their Perry Ellis brand and their Rafaela women's brand. We own a large stake of it in our Deep Value service here, so I'm going to be keenly watching what they have to say.
All right, Jason, what about you?
Chris, I know you're not a beer drinker, but I bet if you were, you would probably have some of Boston Beer's products in your fridge. Now, they just came out with earnings here recently and knocked the cover off the ball again. But this is a company that I've continued to follow for a long time here. Just unbelievable when you look at the domestic beer market maintaining a relatively sort of flat level there. But craft brew continues year in and year out to pick up more share. And you've got a dedicated leadership team here in founder Jim Cook, CEO Martin Roper, who are taking this company, building it for the long term. And so for me, really, it seems to always look expensive, but it never seems to go on sale. It's just a really quality company, and it's one that I have really high up on my watch list.
All right, for Jason Moser and Ron Gross, I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
People on the show may have interest in the stocks they talk about, and the Motley Fool may have formal